Welcome to Surviving Show Business, the podcast that takes you inside entertainment to help you survive and thrive with your host, Aaron Seals. Surviving Show Business is sponsored by nycastings.com, the place where stars are born. Actors, models, dancers, and singers can join and get casting notices sent to your phone every day. Hey folks, welcome to the show, and today's show is all about voiceovers, the exciting and lucrative world of voiceovers. And our guest is Bob Bergen, two-time Emmy nominated Bob Bergen, that is. Now, Bob has a resume 6 miles long, but he's actually best known as the voice of Porky Pig, Tweety, Sylvester, Speedy Gonzales, Marvin the Martian. Who else, Bob?
And my favorite word you just said is lucrative.
Certainly is. You work for the Looney Tunes. You do a lot of the Looney Tunes characters these days. Which characters, if you could do a few of those for us?
The pig.
And yep. I don't do Sylvester. I do Sylvester Jr.
Oh,
Sylvester,
okay.
Sylvester had at some point, like in the late 40s, Sylvester had a son. We don't know who Mrs. Sylvester is, and it was never discussed back then. But Sylvester Jr. There'd be like a kangaroo, and he would think it was a giant mouse, and he'd be like,
"Oh, Father, I'm so ashamed. My own father can't catch a giant mouse."
Awesome. I was reading in your bio that when you were 5 years old, you told your parents you wanted to be the voice of Porky Pig, and then you set out to do exactly that. So I want to learn from you, how did you do that? I wanted you to break out the steps that you took along your career, and then we'll get to all this new stuff that you're doing.
A lot of it was just, I guess, a child's lack of common sense. If I get, when my dad moved the family to Los Angeles when I was about 14, not for me to do what I do, but he took a job here,
right?
And I just thought, well, I'll just call Mel Blanc and tell him, listen, I just arrived. I can't imagine anybody else can do this but me. so I thought I'll call him. I'll call him up and just tell him, listen, you're kind of old. I've seen you on TV, and if nobody's given you an opportunity to retire, I'd be more than happy to. So I looked in the phone book, and I couldn't find his name or number. And my dad informed me that we'd come from Ohio, and my dad said, Cincinnati's phone book is not Los Angeles's phone book. First of all,
right?
LA's huge. There's a phone book for every street corner, and there's a lot of unlisted people. But he traveled Southern California from like Pasadena to Malibu, and he brought me a stack of white page phone books up to the ceiling. And I just picked up the top phone book and called every M or Mel Blanc in the book, and I couldn't find it, and went through all the phone books. And then I thought, well, maybe it's under his wife's name. So I started over again, and I found E. Blanc in the Pacific Palisades phone book, and his wife's name was Estelle. That was his number. And I called up and I talked to him on the phone. And, I asked him, how do you get in the business? Do you need an agent? All the kind of business questions that one asks.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the course of the conversation, he mentioned the name of the studio he was working at that week. He didn't say the day or the time, but he mentioned the name. So when I finished talking to him, I called the studio pretending to be his assistant. And I said to the receptionist, "Hi, I'm just calling to confirm Mr. Blank's appointment for, Thursday at 9. And she said, "Oh, no, we've got him on the books for Wednesday at 11. I went, "Oh, my gosh, you're absolutely right. I'm looking at the wrong calendar. I'm so sorry." So I said to my mom, "Look, I'm skipping school Wednesday, and you're going to take me to watch Mel Blanc work." And she said, "That sounds cool." So when we got to the studio, I told the receptionist that we were guests of Mel Blanc, and he's expecting us. And she showed us which booth he was in. And when we walked into the booth, I told his producer that we were good friends of the receptionist, and she said we could watch. So we just sat there and I watched him work.
Wow,
and
that's amazing.
It was pretty incredible to watch, the person doing Bugs Bunny and Porky Pig and Daffy Duck and Tweety live. And after that meeting, realizing that he was still doing this and I was still 14 and my voice hadn't changed, I thought, well, I should learn how to do this. So if the opportunity ever comes up, I'll be prepared.
I got a question though.
Sure.
As he finished his session, he comes out the door, and what was the first conversation that you two had with each other?
Well, what was interesting about that that meeting was that as he was doing the voices, I was thinking, oh, he's not that good anymore. And well, because the man was in his 60s and he was smoking, and they did a playback and it sounded really, really good. And I said to his producer, what did you do in the playback to make it sound so good? And she said, we sped his voice up. And I said, when did you start doing that? And she said, when we started working with him back in the 30s. And wow. I didn't know most of his voices were sped up electronically. So when I went to meet him, I kind of wanted to sound cool, like I was in the know. Like, I didn't think a lot of people knew this. So I was trying to think, what can I say that makes it sound like, hey, I know the secret. So when I went to shake his hand, I said, I listened to the playback, and I guess you're not as good as I thought you were.
Oh, God.
Hey, I know, right?
That could have went either way. Quick.
And he goes, excuse me? And I said, well, no, I didn't mean that. My mom is kicking me. And I said, I didn't mean that the way it sounded. I meant that, you're really good, but I guess you need help. And he whips out a pad of paper, signs an autograph, hands it to me, and he says, I'd shut up while you're behind, kid, and walked away. So that was my conversation with Mel Blanc.
But so how did you get back into the loop with him?
I really didn't. I mean,
Okay.
I went home after that session. I called Hanna-Barbera, and they referred me to a guy named Dawes Butler who taught an animation class, and I studied with everybody that had a voiceover class. I studied acting at a conservatory for 2 years, 3 years of improv. So I really was prepared.
And that was in your teenage years that you started doing the voiceover classes?
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
I was 14, took my first class. Nobody was 14 in those classes. And back then they wouldn't hire you if you were under the age of 18. They do today. But back then it was June Foray and Don Messick and Dawes Butler doing all the kids' voices. Unless it was a Peanuts special. They didn't really have kids doing cartoons. But I didn't meet Mel Blanc again until, I guess a few months before he died. He wrote an autobiography, and he was doing a book signing at a theatrical bookstore out here. And I went with my buddy Bill Farmer, who was the voice of Goofy. Okay. And I just, I met him. Again, I reminded him I crashed that session. He didn't remember. It was so many years before. and so that was the only other time I got to meet him.
Okay. So you went on your way. You were doing these classes. How'd you get your first job?
I got my first job. It's interesting. I was still studying. This is 2 years before I got my first job. I was at a party. My cousin took me to this big Hollywood party. And I met a lady who was a bank teller who said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to be Porky Pig. And she said, well, that's strange. And I said, I know. And then 2 years later, she called me up. And I had just gotten my first agent, and I was an unemployed actor, but I was represented. And she said, if you still want to do cartoons, I might have a job for you. And I said, well, you work at a bank. And she said, well, I'm gonna be honest with you. You got me interested in animation when I met you 2 years ago. So to make a long story short, I'm now the talent coordinator for Marvel Productions, and we're doing a new Spider-Man cartoon. Would you like to audition for it?
Wow.
And I said, okay. Yeah. So I auditioned for it. I got the job. I got Taft-Hartley'd into the union. I called my agent and I said, I got a cartoon. And he said, how'd you do that? And I told him. And then I spent 5 years as a tour guide at Universal Studios, paying the bills until I was able to work full time as an actor.
Wow. Before you got your agent, you made a demo, I assume, from your classes?
No, not really.
No?
I mean, see, 4 years of classes, nobody said the word demo. Nobody said the word union. Classes back then were all about craft, and classes today seem to be all about how do you make money at this.
Remind me what year that was again, or those years.
1806. No, this was 1978 to 1982. And
okay. So even cassettes hadn't really hit yet.
It was reel to reel. My first demo was on reel to reel.
Yeah. So okay.
And again, nobody talked about how much money you're going to make, or if you could make money. It was really, classes back then were all about craft. Nobody really talked about this came with the internet, this idea of making money at voiceover. So it's not a bad thing to make money at voiceover, but it shouldn't be what drives you, because if money is your goal, you'll never feel satisfied.
Right.
But
But now you started developing your techniques when you were a kid, right?
Pretty much.
Who did you start to? Who did you try and mimic, I guess, when you started?
Well, and see, that's what I learned in classes, especially Dawes Butler. Dawes Butler was almost every voice Mel Blanc wasn't. He was Yogi Bear and Huckleberry Hound and Elroy Jess. And Dawes was the first voiceover teacher to use the A word, which is acting.
Okay.
And Dawes never talked about the sound of the characters. He talked about the personality and the word character. You know, it doesn't matter what a character sounds like. One of his mantras, which I use for my students, is all characters have a voice, but not all voices have character. So, you know, I would say if people have a goal to play one particular character, which is kind of what I did, that's kind of a mistake, and I'm an anomaly. But the majority of what I do, my day-to-day, is not classic characters. It's creating new characters for new product. But my goal was to play a classic character. So, you know, I'm kind of a contradiction, but I still stand by this. If you really want to make it in voiceover, especially animation and games, it's not about can you do your best Bart Simpson or SpongeBob, but can you create the next SpongeBob?
Yeah. Now, you've been in a lot of the big animated films lately. Despicable Me 3, Sing, The Secret Life of Pets, which is one of my personal favorite movies. Wall-E, Cars, Ice Age. How do you get those gigs, and how do you prepare for the voice?
It's a great question. It took me almost 10 years to break into animated features. It was begging, it was calling, it was marketing, and you know, nobody needs you until they need you. My first animated feature was The Hunchback of Notre Dame. My agent had an actor booked on it. He was sick and couldn't make it. She recommended me, and she said, "You better wow them." And when you work on an animated feature, unless you're playing the lead, those of us who are not, you know, name personalities, we can play 20 characters in one scene. We're utility players. So they rely on us to, you know, there might be 12 characters in this one scene, and they want you to play all 12, and they expect you to be able to play all 12. So, and I can do that stuff in my sleep.
But is that voice formed ahead of time, or are you just coming up with it? Like, who's deciding how this should sound?
It's collaborative. You get to the stage, and I remember for Hunchback, one of the first things they needed was a baby crying at the very beginning of the film. And so they said, "Can you do a baby crying?" And I went up to the mic and I went, and they said, "Okay, that's it."
That's good.
And then they needed a horse whinny. So I walked up to the mic and I was like, so, you know, it's the same mixers. It's the same casting director who does a lot of the same Disney Pixar films. So I kind of impressed them at that first session.
Right.
And then they just kept hiring me. And it's not like they make you audition. Although I did just recently audition for something in an animated feature that I can't talk about because they make us sign NDAs now. But for the most part, you're working on Friday at 9 o'clock at Disney, and you get there. And I'll give you an example. I did a film called The Emperor's New Groove. And they told me that they wanted me to play a squirrel. And I get to the stage, and Mark Dindal's the director, and he says, so we need you to play a squirrel. Patrick Warburton's playing this character Kronk, and he speaks squirrel. And you speak, and he translates what you're saying. And I said, do you have a language you want me to read, or have you figured this out? And they said, no, we need you to make it up. And I said, well, what does Kronk say when he's speaking squirrel? And they said, you can't go by that. He just says squeak, squeak, and squeak, squeak, and then you just do your thing. And I said, well, can I think about this for a few minutes? And they said, sure. So I went outside, and Disney Studios looks just like a big old park, and I sat on a bench by a tree. And I'm thinking to myself, squeak, squeak, and squeak, squeak. And nothing was coming to me. And I swear to you, Aaron, a little squirrel came running down a tree, stood next to me on its hind legs, looked at me, and he went, and I went, dude, thank you. And I went back into the soundstage, and I said to the director, how's this? And he went, yeah, that'll work. And so that was this Bucky's character on that film, which led to a sequel, which led to 3 years on a series. So I guess the moral of the story is, you answer, do you prepare? No. It's not cold reading, it's frozen reading. And you just got to be really creative. And you've got have to have a huge imagination, and you really have to have great improvisational skills.
Awesome. Now, speaking of shows, you're on the new Star Wars animated TV show as Luke.
No, I'm not. I don't think Luke is in it. And maybe he is. I don't know.
What am I thinking of?
I do a lot of the games as Luke.
Oh, games. That's what I read on your website.
Yeah, but I am on a new Star Wars series, but I can't talk about it because of NDAs. The last Clone Wars, I played a character named Lama Su. Lama Su is a very villainous character, and not quite as loony as the Looney Tunes are. Wow. So a very, very, very different character than Wacky Zany.
Do you like, what do you like better, the video game work or the characters? What's your favorite stuff to do?
I much as a performer, I much prefer animation than games. When you do a game, first of all, you're working by yourself, and you have to record every possible option that these players are going to have. So if it could be 25, 30 pages of options. So if it's Luke or some young character, it might be quick, go right, quick, go left, quick, go up, quick, go down, quick, go left, then up.
Right.
And you have to deliver each line as if the players never heard it, because when they're playing it, they never have. So you can't waver on your commitment in performance, and it gets tiring and it gets tedious. And it also can be very throaty. I pass on 9 out of 10 game auditions because I don't want it to destroy my throat. I mean, if it's a creature, and by the way, in creature language, they may want you to say, quick, go right, quick, go left, but the creature doesn't speak English. In fact, when we hang up from this conversation, I have to go in and audition for creatures, and it might be something like, and 4 hours of that.
Yeah, that does sound like it would really wear out your voice. And I have heard of studios kind of overworking people with long hours. How long do you think you can last doing regular animated character? Well,
if it's real throaty, again, I'll pass on the audition. If it's a game that I really want to do, like this, I'm about to audition for a game that I really want to do. The creatures were fun. A very good director, and they're all honestly really good these days, they will save the real throaty stuff till the very end. If I know that I've got a session either later on in the day or the next day that I need full voice, then I might ask my agent to reschedule the rough character job if possible. But a session's no more than 4 hours.
Okay. Now, a question. Do you often, for these auditions, are you recording them at your home studio, or are you going somewhere to audition?
99% of the time I'm in my home studio.
Okay.
And there are pluses and minuses. The pluses are that there's nobody there to tell you that what you're doing is wrong. So from a creative standpoint, you can't make a wrong choice. The minus is nobody's there telling you what you're doing is right. So it's a guessing game. But this is why God created Take Two. So if I look at a piece of copy and I'm like, man, I got 5 different ways to do this, I will slate at the top, Bob Bergen, 5 takes. So they know, well, if the first one isn't what they're looking for, there's a second and a third and whatever. And, sometimes actually I only have one idea. But I prefer in-person auditions. I'm an actor who really likes direction. I like people. I think sometimes an actor wins the audition, not necessarily 100% by their acting choices, but a lot of it is just by the chemistry in that room. So we don't have that anymore. I miss it a lot.
Chemistry. So could a person get started on their own just by starting, buying a microphone and talking into it and kind of working their way through it?
It's kind of like saying, can a person play for a symphony orchestra just by buying a violin? No, you can't. You can't. And this is why hundreds and hundreds are trying every day to get in, and very few do. It's no different than it was when I got into the business, and it's no different than it was when people before me got in the business. The cream floats to the top. They're looking for brilliant actors, but they're holding auditions every single day. And I'm in the business over 30 years. I still audition. People coming into the business are auditioning. So, if it's something that people really want, don't look for the fastest and easiest and cheapest way. You want to do more than everybody else, which is kind of what my philosophy was. And it's what all of my mentors taught me, Casey Kasem, Dawes Butler, the people that I study with, they said, look, don't try to get in just for the sake of getting in. Be great so they want you.
What if a person lives in a place where there is no voiceover classes being taught? How do you think they could kind of develop?
There's voiceover work everywhere. Animation, you kind of have to be in Los Angeles.
Okay.
But if you want to do commercials, if you want to do e-learning or narration, IVR, there's voiceover all over the country. And there are voiceover agents all over the country. So you don't necessarily have to be in a major market to pursue voiceover. But depending on what you want to pursue, if you want to do network promos, if you want to do animation, then you got to be in New York, LA, Chicago. But let's be honest, Aaron, if people really want to do this, if they give me I really want to do cartoons, but I'm not willing to move to Los Angeles, it's the same person saying, I really want to do Broadway, but I don't want to go to New York. You can do theater anywhere, but you just can't do that one street.
Right. So the big stuff, you got to move, folks.
If that's what your goal is. And what's nice is that you don't have to have that goal, but don't lie to yourself. Don't say I'm trying to build up my resume in Dayton, Ohio in hopes that a Los Angeles agent will be interested. They're not, unless you're living here.
Got it. What other skills would you think would be helpful? Like knowing different languages would seem like a big bonus. Being able to do accents.
Yeah, I'm really bad at accents and dialects. I can get by, with, I can say a leprechaun, but I'm not going to sound like I'm from Ireland. I'm going to sound like a guy who talks for a cereal box. I would say, to me, the most important skill any actor can have, I don't care if your thing is voiceover or soap operas. I think the most important training is improv, because improv forces you to listen. And it forces you to make choices and not waver. So no matter what you're doing as an actor, some of the biggest mistakes any actor does, whether it's theater or commercials, is wavering and trying to please and not making solid choices. So to me, improv, great training. I find that most of the people that succeed in voiceover have some kind of a musical background, from singing to playing an instrument. They know pitch, they know rhythm, and those are things you can't learn. You're born with that. So,
now that's an interesting point for you, because your characters are often singing. So you have to be able to sing.
And I'm a terrible singer. I'm not a trained singer. I sing great in character. I've had to sing in theme songs quite a bit. When we did Fraggle Rock, we were
Dance your cares away down in Fraggle Rock.
We've done oodles of children's albums, but I'm not a trained singer. So you ask me to sing in my own voice, and I kind of get nervous because I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. But in character, I'm actually quite good.
What about in the film Sing? What characters did you do in that one?
Want to hear an interesting story about Sing?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so Sing comes out, and I'm getting all these emails and phone calls. Hey, I saw your name in the credits of Sing. Congratulations!
I
and I'm
love
like,
that movie so much.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
a great
you.
movie.
But
I've seen it a few times.
I'm telling everybody, I didn't work on Sing.
Of course.
And my mom went to see it, and she goes, I saw your name in the credits. I said, Mom, I did not work on Sing. Okay, so 2 years before Sing came out, I was working on either Minions or Despicable Me 3 or The Secret Life of Pets. I forget which one, but it was for Illumination. Okay. And I worked on all three, so I forget which one. And I worked on that film for a couple of days. And then I got booked for 2 more days at a different studio, but the casting director said it was the same film. And evidently it wasn't. Evidently it was Sing, but it was so top secret they didn't tell us what it was. They didn't tell us it was a different film, and they didn't have the name of the film on the contract. I got to be really, really honest. I don't know what I did. I haven't seen it. When you work on an animated feature, it's like doing a live action movie. You shoot out of sequence, and for a cartoon, you only get to see the pieces of the script that you're in. Mm-hmm. So for any feature I've done, I've never read the entire script before it was done. I only read the pages I was in. So I don't remember. I seem to remember, and you tell me if this is true, is there a restaurant scene with monkeys and dogs?
I can't remember. It's been a while.
Okay,
since
see,
I saw
there
it.
you go. So I don't remember, honestly, but but I'm getting residuals. I'm in it.
Sweet. Let's talk about residuals and money.
Let's talk about the residuals and money.
I'm guessing the best money makers are your like Looney Tunes series, since it's so vast, covers so much ground. But I don't know. You tell me.
Wrong.
Tell me what's the good stuff. What does everybody try and get?
The real money in the residual department is the animated features, because and it used to be better. My first film is actually all films, but animated features more than live action. The first film I ever did was a movie called Gremlins back in the 80s.
I remember Gremlins. My favorite movie at the time.
There we go. So when Gremlins came out on home video, it came out on VHS, and I bought it. I wanted to own it. It was $100 to buy that video cassette. Well, residuals are based on the gross sales divided by the number in the cast. When a VHS was $100, well, the residuals were better. Now, if you want to watch a movie, it's a 99-cent download, or you watch it on demand. So the pie that we divide is not quite as big. That said, it's still a pretty darn lucrative world. So the animated features, people purchase animated features. If you've got, every Pixar film that ever came out, you want the next one.
Yeah.
If you've got them all on DVD, you want the Blu-ray. So fortunately, animation is one of the genres that people still purchase, where they don't necessarily buy every Mission Impossible movie. They may see it on cable, they may on demand it, but they're not going to want to own it as much as they used to. Right. So
everybody gets the animated films for their kids, and they're watched 6,000 times.
Well, they're babysitters. They can put them in their mom mobile while the kids are in the back watching it, just to keep the kids quiet while they drive from Florida to New York for Thanksgiving. So, and grandparents buy it and schools buy it. So, long-winded answer, yeah, that's where the real residual money is.
And those play all around the world too. So they have to get translated, right?
Yeah.
So you got some translation going on.
Well, but if they're translated, we're not getting those residuals. However, there's an English track on every DVD. So we're on all those DVDs. Yeah.
Now, for people that don't know, these are covered under the SAG-AFTRA union.
Correct.
And maybe you can explain how that works with residuals and going around the world with those kinds of residuals.
Yeah, I mean, and every job is different. Every contract is different. When you work on an animated feature, it is, for all intents and purposes, a day player contract. Whether you're doing a voice in a cartoon or you're doing a day on a live action feature, it's the exact same contract, and they have to pay you some minimum scale payment, which I believe is just under $1,000 today. I forget what it is. And your residuals for an animated feature are based on the numbers of days that you work on the film divided by the entire cast. If you look at a movie like Titanic, you'll see billions of names, because everybody from Leonardo DiCaprio to the person in the dining rooms who says, "Can I take your order?" is on the screen credit list. In animation, it's a fraction of that. So the animated features that make more money than most live action, that sell better on DVD, have a bigger piece of the pie and a smaller group to divide it amongst. So that is how we get our residual breakdown. So if you're working on 2 or 3 days on a film, you're going to probably do better than doing 1 day on a film. But 1 day on a film will still be quite good. And I wish I could give you a dollar amount. 1 day equals X thousands of dollars, but it really just depends on the film. It depends on on when it came out. When I did some of the earlier Pixar films, I made, high 5 figures my first residual check, where, I may not make quite as high today because they're just not as expensive to purchase.
So now you're making the bulk of your money off your past work's residual income. All your films, you got checks coming in the mail each week.
Yeah, I would say the bulk of my annual income is residual based, but the majority of the people pursuing voiceover don't get residuals because the majority of voiceover today is non-union.
Right.
So I still make a nice living. I mean, if I didn't get residuals, I could still make a decent living on just my session fees. But it's harder to do in Los Angeles than it is in Middle America.
Right. Okay, so we've got that whole residual thing down. So
Yeah.
now tell me what getting new work for you is like on a weekly basis. What's like a full week like for you?
I can tell you a typical weekday.
Yep.
I get up about 5 a.m. My coffee's on timer. I pour a cup of coffee. I go into my office. I check my email, and first thing I do is I have auditions. And the reason I'm up so early is because I have an agent in New York and I have an agent in Los Angeles, and my New York agent needs their copy in by 9 o'clock a.m. New York time, which is 6 o'clock my time.
Who are these agents? Could you name?
I'm with Atlas Talent.
I know Atlas Talent.
Yeah, and I'm with them on both East and West Coast.
Okay.
And I print up my copy. I look at the first piece of copy. I go to my computer. I push record. I go into the booth and I start working. And I'm usually done with all of my auditions by 9 o'clock because they're due by 9 o'clock Los Angeles time too, for the most part. Unless I have a job. And if I have a job, if it's an animated feature, it's an 8-hour day. So I will probably have to leave my house by about 6:30 to get to wherever I have to be by 9 o'clock. Which means I'm up even earlier to do my auditions. I'm not a night person, so I'm not one who can do them past 8, 9 o'clock at night because I'm exhausted and my voice is tired. But if I don't have anywhere to go, if I don't have any other jobs after 9 o'clock, I am in my home office and I am marketing my career until 6 o'clock in the evening, just like a 9-to-5 marketer.
Okay, so let's talk about the marketing part. First of all, you have agents that you work with. You also have a PR person, which a lot of people don't have that, and that's how I got in contact with you, through your PR. He contacted me. So what kind of stuff do you guys do together in the marketing aspect?
If I have something new...
If you get something new, then I assume he's all over it and he's trying to make a big deal out of that new thing.
Exactly. But, when you've got not to pat myself on the back, but I've got a pretty substantial body of work.
Yes,
and
definitely.
And a lot of times, different outlets, different talk shows, whatever, they're interested in hearing, so tell me how you got Looney Tunes. What was it like working for Pixar? Sometimes they just want to talk about the anime work I've done. Sometimes they want to talk about, the classes I teach, whatever. So I have a publicist who just gets your name out there. But as well as I do that in today's world of show business, social media followers are today's Nielsen ratings. And the more people talking about you out there, the more who might tune into that first episode or buy tickets to that film that first day. So having your face out there, having your name out there, it's important today. So, and
also on these large budget films, they want you to be promoting when the film comes out too. The celebrities, of course, but everybody, I imagine.
I got to tell you,
is there anything in place where that's required?
Yeah. I've done jobs from commercials to episodic cartoons where in our contract they say we would love you to do at least 5 impressions a day, not vocal impressions, but just online impressions, promoting. And sometimes it's contractual, and more often than not they're just, hey, they'll email me saying, can you it's debuting on Thursday, can you blast it? Sure. And the people that say sure and cooperate are the ones that are going to call again because they're reliable. You're a team player. Very few people in my world are going to say, no, I'm not going to talk about it because I don't pay attention.
That's funny. Okay, so again, let's get back into your week. So you're promoting all the time, and you teach voiceover. So
I do.
That probably takes a good portion of it. What do we learn when we take your class? How do we start? I guess I should say.
Okay. Well, first of all, I don't teach beginners. You got to have some kind of an acting background. I don't care if that's high school and college acting, just something. So I'm not your first acting teacher. Okay. In LA, I teach 3 classes a year, January, April, and August, and my LA class has a 4-year wait list, so I don't even promote it. But what I teach people is how to create characters, how to sustain characters, and how to remember characters. but more important, how to remember and sustain original characters. Because nobody wants you to go to the mic if the character is a witch and do Margaret Hamilton from The Wizard of Oz. They want an original witch. So what I teach actors are the techniques and skills to bring originality to the character. And also, if your audition's on Monday and your callback's on Friday, how do you remember what you did? So that's also a part of what I teach students.
How long is your course usually?
For my LA class is 8 weeks, but I also do weekend classes around the country. I'm not doing. I am doing one this year. I'm doing. It's more advanced, and I'm doing one in San Diego. I think in November with Colette Sunderman, who's a animation voice director and casting director. It's sort of like on Saturday I coach them, and on Sunday they showcase for her. So it's more of an advanced animation class. But it's a lot of fun, and that's in San Diego in November. And then next January, I'm doing a cruise, which I did 10 years ago by myself. This time I'm doing one with Marilyn Wisner. So it'll be a full day of commercial, full day of animation, and then a full day of marketing and networking.
I'd like to take that cruise.
You should. I heard as of today we got 5 spots left. But
all right, so everybody get this cruise. How can they get to you? To see these classes.
If they go to my website, bobbergen.com, they can, I think on the homepage, they can click a banner. But we are going to take a backup list once it books up because, people may drop out. So I would say just click that link and there's information on who to contact and just get information and all that stuff. And the cruise is in California, so it's a California coastal cruise. But it's a 7-night cruise. 3 of the sea days we're all doing voiceover stuff, and I'm looking forward to doing cartoon karaoke with all the students on the ship, and get cartoon actors and cocktails, and it's a lethal combination.
That's a thing. They do that. They sing in characters.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. It's gonna be fun.
That sounds fun. That sounds really fun. I got to take this cruise.
There you go.
Okay, but tell me, back to teaching. Can anyone learn to be a great voiceover artist?
Can anyone learn to dance? Can anyone learn to play guitar? Can anyone learn to sing opera? The answer is no. It starts with talent. But I'm a firm believer that you're born with talent. You're born an actor. You're born a sculptor. But what classes do is they teach you the specific techniques so you can repeat your skills at will. So you may be the world's greatest actor, but you have no idea how to interpret copy, how to break down the character, how to do that perfect read, and they have a technical glitch in the booth, and they say, "Oh God, we had a problem with the mic. Do it one more time." Exactly the same. Well, without acting technique, you're going to make a guess. With acting technique, you make a choice. So you just go back to that choice you made. So the answer to your question is no. Not everybody can do this, but I think every great actor can work in animation. You don't have to do 1 billion characters to work in animation. In fact, it doesn't matter how many voices that you do. It matters that you can take that script. What I teach my students is that a script is a skeleton. You got to give it a body. So you take the writer's words and you make it your own, and you make that character sound more layered and more interesting than that writer ever knew existed. That's what good acting is all about, no matter what you're doing.
Now, are you guys working in a recording studio?
Yeah. Except for the boat. On the boat, we're using conference rooms.
Okay.
But no, for my class, yeah. And when I teach around the country, I book studios, absolutely. And everything in my class is recorded, including my direction, because I might spend 20 minutes with an actor, and after 20 minutes, you walk away from that mic, and the actor's like, "How did I do that?" Well, I record everything, including how I got them from point A to point B to point M. So they take that work with them, so a smart actor will listen to that every single day. So they get to the point where they actually own that character.
Okay. So let's say a person, are you making a demo over this course? Are they coming out with a demo? They don't do that.
Nope. And I would, if any class that offers a demo, I say run in the other direction. A class is for technique and craft. Not everybody is ready for a demo when they take a class.
So let's say they've taken the class. It's their dream to be a voiceover person. They've got a lot of talent. What do they do next?
Well, then they do have to make a demo. Okay. And if you are demo ready, then you should know everything that does and everything that doesn't go on a demo. You should know every great demo producer. You should know who the agents are. You should know who their talent that they represent is, and you should know who did their demos. And you should know what journey and path they took to get to where they are. That's how prepared you have to be. I had to stalk Mel Blanc with a phone book today. Everybody in voiceover, from animation to narration, is available online. You can go to their website. You can go to their agent's site. You can listen to their demos. You can pop them a note on Twitter and say, who produced your demo?
Yeah.
And so it's easier today to weed through the garbage than it was back when I was doing this.
In fact, we have a whole list of agencies on both coasts on our nycastings.com website. So a person could go there and start looking around and see who does voiceovers. Now, let's say a person has gotten a pretty good demo made. What would you say they're going to be doing next? What kind of steps are they going to take after they've got their first demo made?
I'm going to say it depends on what you want to do out of your career. But let's say you want to do commercial voiceover. And let's say you live anywhere in the country. Mm-hmm. You can submit to the agents. There are dozens of agents all over the country that represent voiceover. But agents aren't going to take you just because you have a great demo. The best way to get an agent is in the subject line of that email, referred by blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah has got to be somebody impressive. It shouldn't be another actor. It should be a buyer. It should be a casting director, a producer, somebody who can hire you, somebody who's influential. Don't know that person? Perhaps you're not ready for an agent. And in the body of your email, if it's seeking representation, here's who I've studied with, attached is my demo, you might as well also say, and by the way, dump this and don't listen, because you're now a dime a dozen. But the person who in the body of their email says recent work includes, and there's that laundry list, even if it's 5 or 6 jobs, and not just the jobs, not just a Tide commercial, but Tide Television, advertising agency Leo Burnett, writer-producer Joe Schmo. This is an industry all about relationships. The more relationships an actor brings to an agent, the more representable they are. If you submit your demo with 5 or 6 credits, and 3 of those credits have buyers that agent also knows, you are now an easier sell than those actors who don't have this list of buyers the agent knows. Those other 2 buyers the agent doesn't know, you bring value because those are brand new relationships for that agent. Mm-hmm. Now, anybody can put a laundry list of jobs, Radio Shack commercial, Petco commercial, et cetera, et cetera. But everybody can lie about those jobs too. If you go the extra mile with the people and the production companies, it looks more legitimate. And again, you bring more meat to the table.
Cool. And I think there's a lot more diversity of jobs than people realize. My phone talks to me now. Siri, and we in fact interviewed the woman that did the Siri voice a couple of years ago. Very interesting. A lot of things are talking to me now. There's books on tape. So what are some other opportunities out there that we might not know about?
Yeah, you bring up one of my favorite words in this business of voiceover, which is diversity. The more diverse you are, the more representable you are, the more work you're going to get. So the different genres of voiceover: animation, games, commercial, promo, trailer, narration, e-learning, audiobooks, IVR. I mean, IVR is on hold. Thank you for calling AT&T. For customer service, press 1. That's a person that they hired to do that.
Right.
But keep in mind, people who are listening to this, every genre of voiceover requires its own training and its own demo and its own marketing. So I don't do audiobooks myself because I would rather watch a grapefruit grow than read a book online. I just don't have the patience or the skill for it.
You got to be free for the big jobs.
Well, I mean, I know some people. My buddy Scott Brick is a genius at audiobooks, and they seek him out because he's so brilliant at it, and he loves it. I know people that they wake up every day excited to read their next audiobook. and I don't have the patience for it. But I know not everybody wants to go into a studio and be a stuttering pig, thank God. So, but people can't just say, I want to do this and do it. You got to study. You have to have a great demo. You have to have a website, and you have to market each genre of voiceover. But if it's slow, if you have an agent and it's slow commercially this week, it might be busy for promos. If it's slow for promos, you might have a couple of games. Slow for games, you might be doing narration. So again, diversity is key for longevity.
Now, since you brought up Porky the Pig, you will do live events. Is that true? You'll do, promotional kind of stuff where you're showing up live and performing.
On occasion, yeah. I mean, I've got a one-man show that I've taken around the country, and every once in a while, the studio will ask me to go do a promotional whatever. I'm one of the only actors this weekend who's not going to San Diego Comic-Con because I've got personal things to do. I've got a friend doing a play in Beverly Hills, and gosh darn, I'm going to be there for her. So,
So here's the deal. That's the play. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, that's my most recent, my one-man show, Bob Bergen. So here's the deal. Mm-hmm. If I do it again, I'll probably do some rewriting and change the title. That was the second generation, but it's the story of a nice Jewish boy who wanted to be Porky Pig.
How long is it?
It's about hour and 15 minutes.
Is it just you? Just you?
It's just
one-man show.
It's just me. I've done it as a theatrical one-man show. I've done it as a keynote speaker at corporate events. I can make it adaptable. I did it on a cruise ship once. I've done it at nightclubs. So yeah, it's fun.
That's a great shoot off from the voiceover career. You make the play out of it.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, the story where I called Mel Blanc on stage, I recorded that conversation, which, by the way, it's illegal to do that. Kids don't do that at home. You're not allowed to do that. But it's been over 40 years, so I think, okay. But when I'm on stage playing myself at 14, I took the recording and I took young me out. And so I'm on stage having a conversation with Mel Blanc, which is, kind of cool.
And you made a lot of recordings back in those days. I was on your website and I was listening to a lot of the samples.
Yeah.
Which people should do is go to bobbergen.com and read up about all these projects and listen to these samples, because it's kind of amazing that you were doing that stuff at such a young age and you just pursued it throughout your life.
Yeah, I traveled everywhere with a cassette recorder, and today people have it in their pocket. It's called an iPhone. So I mean, if I'm at a restaurant and the waiter or the waitress has an interesting voice, I was at a restaurant the other night, and the waitress came over and she's like, would you like to know the special? And I said, hang on for 1 second. I put my phone on record, and I said, yeah, can you tell me the specials? Well, we have a Scottish salmon that is fabulous over mashed potato. Well, I'm like, okay, I will use her in a cartoon one day. And I've got a catalog of just real people, real sounds that I will refer to, and I get an audition just to refresh my memory.
Other than your play, do you write scripts?
No, I don't write scripts. I am in the process of writing a book called Porky Dishes, which is just anecdotes about being in this business and doing the Looney Tunes and having to I just booked a new Looney Tunes series that I had to re-audition for, 5th time in 28 years. Don't get me started. But bottom line is I don't own the character, and they can do whatever they want, and I just have fun when that happens. But the book, each chapter comes with a pork recipe, which, because I'm a nice Jewish boy who happens to like bacon and voices a pig, I figured, why not?
How long are you going to have the Porky Pig gig? Are there more than one person that does it in a situation? Because I know there's different kinds of cartoons that they make with these characters. Yeah. I don't own the character, so that's why for this new series, it's funny. I'm finishing up one series and starting up a new one, and as I'm finishing up the one that we're ending, I had to audition for the one we're starting, different producers. So the answer to your question is, I don't know. I think I've been Porky probably 95 to 99% of the time over the last 28 years. Certainly there are non-union Porkies if they ever need it for something that's non-union, because I can't do it if it's non-union. But what if they do the Spanish version of this show?
They got somebody else for that. In
There's
fact,
a Spanish version of you and a French version of you and a Chinese version of you.
And I'm going to say probably of Mel. I'm going to say probably of Mel Blanc. Chances are these are actors who studied Mel Blanc, not my version. But I got an email last year from a guy in Italy who was the Italian version of Porky Pig, and he said, I'm also the Italian David Schwimmer on Friends, and I thought, well, that's kind of fascinating. I'm not sure what the correlation is there, but okie dokie. They actually had us audition, I'd say maybe 25 years ago. They had us go into a studio. They paid us for this to try to phonetically do Porky Pig in Hebrew and in Spanish, and we weren't very good.
And the reverse of that, do you ever get a gig where it's a huge Chinese hit and you're doing the American version of that?
Well, I've done not a lot, but I've done some high-profile anime work. I did a film called Spirited Away. I did Akira, and that's a whole different skill level because you have to read the script, watch the scene, match sync, stay in character all at the same time. So I've got buddies who just excel at anime, and that's their bread and butter. They are some of the finest voice actors in the industry, and they've got some of the best fan base in the industry. Anime is Comic-Con this weekend, guys. Hope you're having fun cosplaying and dressing up like all. There's a no face at Comic-Con every year. I usually go to that. Usually wants to, and it's the same guy because I recognize recognize the costume. But you're the Beatles for a day if you do anime and you go to Comic-Con.
Right, that'd be pretty fantastic. What else? Is there anything? What do you want to do in the future? You got any dreams? Future dreams?
Yeah, you know what? I just want to keep on keeping on. I'm very, very blessed that Warner Brothers is really active with the Looney Tunes right now, and I've got a whole bunch of other things that I'm working on that I just can't talk about because of NDAs, but I'm working on a sequel to a Disney film in a couple of weeks and another Star Wars series and a couple of other episodic things. That's the problem with today. And because of the internet, if you talk about it, well, the secret is out, and they like to keep these things kind of secret until they give us permission to talk about them. But I'm very lucky, Aaron. I've been able to make a living at this for a very long time. Every day is different. It's never boring. So I just want to keep on keeping on.
What about on-camera work? I know you've hosted shows in the past. Do you try? Do you have desires to be on camera more?
I used to. I did a lot of sitcoms in the 80s, a few soaps. I hosted a kids' version of Jeopardy in the 90s. Mm-hmm. I stopped doing on camera because it got in the way of my voiceover career. And now that I've got a very, very successful voiceover career and have for a long time, I would love to do a sitcom. Here's the problem. I don't have recent tape and I don't have a recent resume, and I can't put together an acting reel with give me a break and the facts of life and silver spoons. It's not going to do me any good. So I'm not a good sell for on camera, and I know that.
Maybe Anthony can set you up a headshot session or something.
I got headshots. I have a headshot with and without a pig on my shoulder. But
I know. I love that. I love that photo with the pig.
No, thank you. It's not what you look like. It's what have you done lately? And I've had an occasional theatrical agent say, "Sure, I'd like to represent you, but I want your voiceover money." Well, it doesn't work that way. So the long-winded answer to your question is, I would love to do theatrical, but I'm also a smart, realistic actor. It ain't going to come my way. But occasionally I'll do a play. I might do a waiver play just to get on stage and not to do it to get rich, but just to do it because you love to act.
How do you produce your one-man show? Do you do everything yourself? Are you renting the theater?
I'm doing everything, man. I have such respect for producers after producing this thing 2 or 3 times. I'm doing everything. I'm renting the theater. I'm getting the insurance. I'm doing the marketing. I do all of it.
That's the way to do it. That's the fun way to do it. Doing everything yourself. Then
Well, the job is done.
Then you can kind of go whatever direction you want to go in. You're not beholden to anyone.
Pretty much, and depending on the venue, there are group audience finders, and you can be with them, and they get a piece of the box office. And you don't do theater to make money; you do it because you love it and you want to have fun. You'd like to break even, but producing is hard work and it's expensive. And as an actor, all I really want to do is act. But I also I don't like leaving bits and pieces of my career in the hands of. I'm a control freak. So when it came to my one-man show. And I did it in New York at Don't Tell Mama a couple of times. I did it in Chicago at I.O. And when you're dealing with another facility, you're dealing with their tech people. So you want to have a good relationship with them. My show has about 50, 60 audio cues. So it's intricate. But I'm much more of a creative than a producer. I have such respect, again, for any producer, director, having done it myself. But my preference is performing.
Well, you've been producing since you were a kid too, so you've got it all in there.
Kind of, yeah.
And I think that's a great story, and I think we covered everything today. And you got anything else you want to mention before we go?
Let's see. We covered cruises. We covered San Diego. We covered Looney Tunes. Anthony will call me up tomorrow and say, "What did you not say?" So I say, "Anthony, we done good, dude."
Everything can be found on bobbergen.com. So that's all they really need to do. Go there, read up on Bob, see what he's up to.
And at Twitter, I'm at Bob Bergen, and Facebook and Instagram. God, you can't. People, if someone says I couldn't reach you, they're so lying.
Yep, and it's spelled just how it sounds, Bergen, BERGEN.com. And that's two-time Emmy-nominated Bob Bergen.
There we have it.
.com. Thanks a lot, Bob.
Thank you, my friend.
Bye. Well, that's all, folks. Surviving Show Business is sponsored by nycastings.com, the place where stars are born. Actors, models, dancers, and singers can join and get casting notices sent to your phone every day.